everybody! I hope that you're all having a fantastic time today. I know that I am. Having a delightful little Tuesday here on Play Nerd Allies. And welcome all of our friends in chat. Hi Phantom. Hi Snowflake. I hope that your job is treating you fabulously, Snowflake. And we've got a new human being in there. Hi Dev. I hope that you are enjoying yourself today too. Today is going to be a nice sort of chill day as we continue to prep for season 3 of Hunter's Harvest. So I thought today it would be fun to talk about inspiration, since that's such a huge component of D&D in general. And not just inspiration in the game, but where we get our inspiration from. We constantly get asked questions about, like, how did you think about this? How did you think about that? What did you think? Like, where did you come up with these ideas? And so I thought it might be fun to do a sort of AMA type situation where you can ask us about anything you want. Ask us where we got information. And thank you so much. Oh my God, Lando.
14 months. Heck yeah.
Oh my God. That's craziness.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Getting up
We've
there.
been hanging out for more than a year now.
We're getting,
Like, pretty much
channel's
daily.
getting old.
Oh my God. So Lando has been our tech guru for the last 14 months. So I just want to say thank you, Lando.
Yeah.
For being here and doing all the things, and just being a delightful human person. It just makes me so happy that you're in my life.
Thank you. No, same, honestly. My life would be so boring if I hadn't met you back in December of 2020.
So I feel like, well, hold on. I'm going to ask you a question real quick, but first let's talk about our sponsor, Hero Forge.
Yes, Hero Forge.
Hero Forge, we love you. And you should love Hero Forge too. As you can see behind our fabulous panelists here, you can go create a delightful Hero Forge character all on your own, just like they have. It's for free. Just head over to heroforge.com, and if you're someone like me who has no capacity with visual arts, this will level up your character art game dramatically.
Oh yeah.
Allowing you to create all kinds of fabulous stuff. There is, in addition, if you like 3D fabulousness, they will in fact create your character for you and paint it and mail it to you, or send it to you without the paint. If you want to paint it yourself, absolutely. It is just delightful. There is High Clutch. Clutch is delightful. There's, sorry, pardon me, it is like the air conditioning has not yet been set up in my apartment, so it is 90 degrees here.
Oh God.
I'm sweating like a whore in church, as they say.
As they say, exactly.
In addition, everybody signed up for Phoenix Dice.
Oh.
That's right, hit exclamation point raffle if you want to win some Phoenix Dice. They have glorious dice, and if you win dice on our game, you can pick any dice in the entire website. Not just a specific set, anything you want, whatever tickles your fancy, they will ship to you free of charge. So hit that exclamation point raffle and get you some fabulous dice. And with that, if you'd like to see our other fabulous sponsors, head down to our About page and go check them out. They are awesome. And now I want to ask, I'm curious about this, Lando.
Yeah.
Lando, where do you think you would be if I roll together?
Whoa, welcome.
Thank you for the raid. Roll Together is the lead of the Rolling Together stream team, which we are a part of. So yay! It is so exciting to be a part of that team. I absolutely adore it. How was your game today? Was it fabulous? I hope it was absolutely glorious. Hi, Pixie. Hi, Josh. How are ya? There's I would like you all to know that have just joined us. First of all, go to Hero Forge because Hero Forge is absolutely fabulous, and you can do all kinds of delightful things. There is, in addition, sign up for the dice raffle that we are doing today from Phoenix Dice. You can absolutely get fabulous dice from Phoenix Dice just by hitting !raffle today. So do that. And we introduced our first new emote on Sunday, which is the Florid saying welcome to everybody saying hi. Wait, how would the Florid say it? She'd be like, hi there. How y'all doing? Welcome in. You have a great day now. There is and today we're going to be introducing a new emote every single stream for the next several weeks. Today's new one is, of course, our favorite mechanic, the Wheel of Chaos. So, there it is. I saw Mike just threw it into chat. It's our Wheel of Chaos spinning emote with our fabulous rainbow, and that's Karhani on there. I love it.
Is that Karhani?
It's Karhani because it's the most chaotic character we've ever had.
Oh my god. I don't know. Clunch is up there.
No, absolutely. Well, the thing is that I feel like Kate, like Karhani would be like she's not even on the scale of old alignments. She doesn't be chaotic. Like there's no neutral about it. She's just chaotic. Whereas I feel like Clunch would be chaotic neutral.
That's fair. Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of thought behind what Clunch does.
More killer whales need to happen with polymorph. Yes, Clunch. Yes, they do.
I agree. I think there's just not. I've been watching BoJack Horseman, so like when people say killer whale, all I think of like killer whale strippers. Like
that's right.
Killer whale strippers.
That's
okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. I love it. Yay! So I'm super curious, Lando. What do you think you would be doing if you hadn't started this year now?
That is a great but also horrible question, because it's a great question in terms of like it's a really interesting question, but it's a really tough question to answer. I mean, we've been doing this and been on this trajectory since December of 2020. So thinking about how the direction of my life's changed since that time and trying to think of a different direction it would go. Oh man. I'd probably be just being sad at like some IT job, honestly, because I think Clear Knowledge for me has given me a breadth of experience in terms of interacting with people that I wouldn't otherwise have interacted with.
Yeah.
I consider myself an ex-evangelical. I grew up in the church and had a lot of views that I vehemently oppose now. I think I would have. It's hard to say. Player Knowledge has changed me in a lot of really positive ways. During the pandemic, there was a lot of ways in which I challenged the things I thought I believed and the people I thought I believed in and cared about, and really kind of made me think about the community I was a part of. And I'm sorry, try not trying to be super vague, but I'm also trying to be like, not get into like really nitty gritty details. I don't think I would have come. I don't think without Player Knowledge I would have come as far as a person as I would have. I think there's certain things in the world that are happening today that don't necessarily directly affect me that I would be more indifferent about without Planar Allies, without
Sure.
talking
I think one of the
to.
things that I've seen is that same sort of breadth of experience that you've had. Now, I have, you know, I come from a performance background, and I worked in restaurants and bars and stuff like that forever, and so there's a lot of interacting with different people. But I think here one of the things that I love is that there is just so much support for people who are different,
Mm,
who do not fit that, heteronormative mold in the same ways that, a huge swath of the population does. But also where, there is this acceptance of neurodivergence, like I can't even tell you how excited I am to have met Morgan. I have never worked in close proximity to somebody with autism before, but it is a joy,
yeah,
It's just, I mean, if nothing else, I've never had more productive meetings in my life.
but
It's just, get to the point, get the things done, fabulous. All right, what's next?
totally. Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, the biggest thing that would have changed is I would have been more isolated from different kinds of community and different people that have different experiences from me, and I wouldn't have been able to learn and grow.
Yeah.
That's really the biggest thing. So I don't know where that would have taken me.
Yeah,
but
and I think that it's huge to be able to get out of that silo.
totally.
There is, and the thing is, we can all find ourselves in silos at different points, but recognizing a silo when you're in one,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter if it is a silo full of weird racists or if it is a silo full of toxic positivity, where everyone's scared to say, like, I've definitely seen a little bit of that in our community, that toxic positivity where everybody gets love bombed and then everyone's scared to say anything negative. Like there is, and for me, the issue with that is that, like, hey, if somebody, without constructive criticism, you will never grow.
Oh,
You will never learn anything.
totally.
You will never grow as a person. You will only keep doing the exact same things over and over and over again, whether they're good or bad. So it's important to have people in your life that legitimately will tell you, hey, I thought you did great on 80% of this thing, and then here's the percent that you can improve.
Right.
And I think one of the big issues, like when I was growing up, was that I only ever heard the negative. So I would lose 80, 90%. Because most of the time there have been very few times in my life where I've seen somebody fuck something up so bad that it's like, no, this whole thing has to be scrapped.
Yeah.
But I think that is really, really important to accept the positivity with the constructive criticism, and negativity is okay too. Like it's one of those things where if it was not okay for me to get sarcastic with people, I'd have so much more anxiety in my life than I do right now.
Right.
Because that's a complex. I remember when I was working in like the gay clubs and the gay bars, that was just how we communicated with each other. There was none of this like, oh my God, you look amazing. Like that never happened in the club. If there were drag queens there, straight up, it would just be like, it's very much like it is on RuPaul's Drag Race. Like that is a pretty accurate portrayal, but normally it's much more vicious. So it would just like, if you wanted to tell someone that they look nice, you wouldn't say, oh, you look amazing. You'd be like, wow, honey, you look so much better than that trash bag you were wearing last week. Like that's how you say you look cute, like in drag. That's
like
how that goes.
It's like the opposite of Gordon Ramsay's show, where like he definitely like pushes the boundaries and like curses a lot more because he's on camera. For RuPaul's Drag Race, they tone it down because they think
Oh,
they're
they
going to
tone
be
it
too
down
much
so
for the
much.
camera.
Well, they tone
Yeah.
it down so much too because there's drag communication, at least where I was up in Boston, was very much. It would now be considered incredibly problematic.
Well,
And it's in large part because there is. So one of the things that you would do is you would ignore gender. And I know that nowadays, if you do that, it's really problematic. But it didn't matter if you called someone lady, dude, guy, miss, mister, like whatever. It was just accepted. So you could go up to the burliest guy in the bar and be like, listen, lady, no one's here for your bullshit. You know, there's like, and that's fine. It's totally fine. You know, there is, and now that has changed. You know, like that has definitely shifted.
that brings up a good point for me. Kind of tying it back into the D&D kind of world. Where were you? My question is, where were you in your life when you created the Patchwork Planet? When you made the world? You know,
what do you
like,
mean? Where was I? Like, where was I living?
so like,
where was
like,
I emotionally?
like, yeah, where are you emotionally? Where are you like mentally? You know, when you put together the pieces of the Patchwork Planet.
Well, so that's a much more complex question for someone like me.
Or maybe a more concise one is what inspired the Patchwork Planet?
Yeah.
Well, so one of the things about art is that there might be a trigger for art, you know, something that like sets you on the path, and there might be things that sort of like inspire you to do the thing. But in general, what I found at least, Snowflake! Thank you for the subs. That's amazing. Hey, everybody, thank Snowflake for the subs, because now you get to use all the fun animated emotes.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna be tossing out.
Wait, why did Snowflake get for the auto mod? That's hilarious.
Snowflake got what?
Snowflake got caught by the auto mod.
Because it's considered a derogatory term.
Oh!
This means
wow.
fragile.
Problematic Snowflake.
Oh,
I can't believe the Twitch is finally catching up with that. Like,
that's so funny.
That's so funny.
We love you, Snowflake. Wait, so what is Lando? What is 5 subs?
Let me double check. It is
environmental
effect. Environmental effect.
Oh, okay. Keep that for next Tuesday.
All right.
How much stuff do you have on your notebook now? Like, that's gotta be.
There's so much.
There's a lot.
I'm gonna have to just. I'm really gonna have to just like destroy the whole planet all over again.
Yeah.
With all of the bonuses.
Well, actually, here instead of writing down the thing, I'll write down the amount of subs total. Then we can decide what makes sense based on all that.
Right.
How to split it up.
Yeah, you thought taking away magic was going to stop us? I mean, our chatters will destroy you themselves. Like, we don't even have as players. We don't
even need crystals.
Right, we don't need it.
You want to have crystals. So the thing about art in general is that what you're dealing with is, at least what I have found, is that when you're doing a larger project, like if you're doing like a short story or a quick reading or something like that, that's pretty simple. It's pretty cut and dry. When you're doing a larger project, though, it's generally not until you can step away from the project or you can start seeing it through somebody else's eyes that you start seeing what actually inspired it. And so I remember like the first play that I wrote, when we were being when we were rehearsing, one of the jobs of the director, I was directing it, and one of your jobs is to help the actors sort of figure out their characters in the larger context of the show. There's so I remember one of them came up to me and was asking me all these questions, and it was like a light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, holy shit, I had no idea that I had put this in here. I was like, oh, that was specifically drawn from this moment in my life. Oh, damn, didn't even think about it. When I was writing it, it just sort of came out. And with the Patchwork Planet, one of the things that I recognize now is that the whole concept, not just the planet itself, not just the short story that started it, but the entire 3-season arc that is happening it's legitimately about my therapy for DIT. Like, it's straight up just a place that was destroyed by some cataclysmic event that nobody had any control over. And then that journey of self-discovery, self-healing, which is the hero's journey. It's the reason that, the hero's journey is the most widely used writing trope in the world, is because we are all the heroes of our own story. And so that whole thing, starting season 1 with, a sort of authority figure that knows what's going on, but everybody has to figure out what's happening on their own. Won't reveal too much. The second season arc of discovering the thing that is destroying everything else and having to bring everybody together. And then finally the third season arc where things are being brought together, and now what the fuck do you do?
Yeah.
This season for me, I know is going to be very emotional and very visceral for me, because it's straight up, okay, you've spent a year building a world and a stream and collecting all kinds of fabulous people who are here with you now. Now what the fuck do you do? You now have all this freedom, and it's terrifying.
Oh yeah.
And there is, so I think that is the real inspiration is just, and I think this is true for pretty much everyone. There's always going to be aspects of what's going on in your own life in there. And most of the time, you're not going to be aware of how deeply what you're going through is being put into the games that you're creating or the characters that you're playing, so yeah, that's for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's the way you tied everything together too in this season finale. By the way, guys, if you haven't seen it, watch the VOD. It was amazing.
I need to double check, but I'm pretty sure I put it to YouTube.
But
I mean, it was a month ago. You better have.
Yeah.
I'll hurt you. I will hurt you.
I don't think I could have predicted those outcomes. The things with the different relationships between characters and the way you tied everything together in that moment was awesome. I think just amazing writing, just very well inspired.
Well, and I think that there's definitely something to be said for taking inspiration from your players too. That's a huge component of this. And it's one of the reasons that I talk to people who look at this as a hobby. I talk to people who look at this as a game. And I'm like, I don't believe it's either of those things. I believe that it is an emergent art form. that we are now getting to see. And it started definitely as a hobby, but, making up stories started as a hobby many thousands of years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Everything starts somewhere. And what this is, and I thought about this a lot, it very much is it's a, depending on how much, like whether you're using a module or how much the DM is prepping, it is in general a semi-improvised community or collaborative storytelling experience. That everybody is responsible for parts of the story, and essentially the DM or GM or storyteller, whatever you want to call them, is essentially the editor. I had this whole conversation on Twitter a couple of weeks ago about what to call them, what's happening, and the conclusion that I came to, because we went through all of this stuff, where it's like, well, maybe they are the storyteller, but they're not. Everybody's the storyteller, and then I was like, ooh, maybe they're the host. Like their job is to host the party and make sure everybody has a fabulous time. Like they arrange the space for people and invite everyone in, and I was like, that's not really it either, because a lot of times, like a good DM will allow the players to help create the space. And what I realized is that really what you are as a DM is you are the editor. You are the person that comes in and you take the ideas of all of your players and you manage those ideas and edit them into a workable story. But your ideas are also included in that story, And one of the ways that you edit is by looking at your players' life. I mean, I don't know how everybody else is, but there are definitely moments where I'm like, no, that's not a thing that's going to happen. And sometimes it gets edited on stream, and sometimes it gets edited after stream. Like just last week, like we had a moment after the stream where it was like, hey, there were some things that happened on stream, and we're just not going to follow that storyline.
Yep.
And it's like, and that's really all it needs to be. Is just, if it's a truly collaborative experience, if somebody says, hey, I want to follow that storyline, totally fine. This is, this. I don't imagine that this is going to go down as a work of classic fiction, in the
We'll get there one day.
Right, there's. Absolutely. We're going to be the Isaac Asimov of the TTRPG.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
100%.
in that case, what is it? A feeling? Like, what draws you to certain moments and certain bits that you get from your characters that okay, this is something that I want to use, and like what makes something stand out as a like that golden moment?
One of the things for me that I think allows me to work as I have no idea where to put myself on the scale when it comes to GMing, because like my GMing style is just so different from the majority of people. So but I think one of the things that makes me a good DM is the way my brain works. There's literally because of what is, and so I'm gonna go off on a little tangent.
Okay.
Because we are talking about D&D, and for a second, we'll be talking about D&D for a second. And it's one of those things where there's a lot of support for people. And one of the things that is distressing to me is when people, and I'm saying this because there's a song that is out, that came out years ago, but I just heard it again recently, and I hate it because it says the chorus is just, I'm broken and that's beautiful. And I'm like, no, being broken is not beautiful. Overcoming the thing that makes you broken, that is beautiful. The strength that you gain from going through what you need to make yourself better, that is beautiful. Both that process and the end result are beautiful. But if I were to say having DID is beautiful, it's not. It's a fucking horror show. And the only reason that I'm able to deal with it or to talk about it at all is because I've been in therapy for a decade for it. And the trauma that created it was 13 years, well, no, about 20 years long, if we're really looking at all of it. So, yes, if anybody else wants to jump in and be like, yeah, living in that for 30 years is great. I'm like, fuck you. No, it's not. But the journey that I've been on has brought me to where I am now, and I am so much better this year, like today, than I was a year ago. And that person was so much better than the person I was the year before that. That's beautiful. Seeing the improvement is beautiful. Just being broken is somebody living in their trauma. That is just, and one of the things that I do see in our community is, you know, we all know what virtue signaling is. What I see is trauma signaling, where people just pop in and they'll be like, I'm more traumatized than you, and so that makes me great. I was like, no, it doesn't. Everybody has trauma. Everybody's got pain. Your pain is not what defines you. Your strengths are what define you. How you deal with that pain, how you deal with that trauma, that is what defines you as a
that.
person.
And I've seen a lot of people too, like, say, oh, my trauma is worse than yours, so you don't get to feel awful
Yeah.
about your trauma. It's
You
like,
have no idea.
how dare you, you know, like.
Oh, it's, so I come at that from a much more sort of clinical space, in that there are certain disorders and there are certain issues that are just much more severe than others,
Sure.
right? So, you know, you've got like schizophrenia, which is something that cannot be fixed and needs to be medicated forever. That's really difficult. You know, there is DID is something that, like, you cannot get DID unless you've been through at least a couple of decades of trauma and severe trauma, constant trauma with some triggering events in there. You know, like, there is just, so when somebody says, you know, I have trauma and you're not allowed to, like, you know, my trauma is better than yours. Like, I get to use my trauma in this situation, my trauma is worth more, and therefore
Right.
I get to control the conversation.
Or like Trump's your trauma. Yeah.
Unacceptable. Absolutely not. Like, there is, because even though, like, my trauma was severe and the road to recovery has been very, very long, I still don't know what Lando goes through. You know, I don't know what Mike goes through. And so part of that is just being, you know, like, depending on how you were raised, you might have been taught that it's grace or being charitable or being kind or being neighborly, like, wherever that comes from, that should extend to what we're doing, you know? That should extend to the things. And God knows, Lando and I, we were talking earlier, like, he's been here for 14 months. We've been doing this together for 14 months. It has not been, like, you all see us on stream and we love each other. We
absolutely.
We actively tell each other on a regular basis, I love you and I'm glad that you are in my life. That does not mean that we do not have 3-hour-long fucking fights over shit.
It's like a married couple, but you know,
there is,
work
you know,
with
and
it.
it's one of the things where, you know, we own a company together, you know?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where there's going to be things where you have to have these long discussions about what's really going on, you know?
But
at the end, there's always support.
Because a healthy relationship is not a relationship in which there's no tension or no disagreements.
It's not.
A healthy relationship is when there's space and to figure out what you need to figure out and figure out how to grow in a space that's safe, and that you can let the ugliness show, because we are all there's all aspects, or there's everyone has aspects of their self that's ugly. And what a good healthy relationship is allowing to be, each other to be ugly so that you can grow and continue to
Well,
shrink and work on the things that are ugly and things that are not working as well.
I think that is really important in that, like, there is, if you allow yourself to show who you are, all the rough edges, that's when not only the people around you can see those rough edges and learn how to deal with them and learn how to help you get rid of some of those rough edges.
Yeah.
But it also allows you to see, and this happens when you start becoming self-aware, where like those defense mechanisms are going to come out, they're going to happen. And if you are self-aware enough, you can catch what the actual emotional content of those things are. And then you can look at that and you can see, oh, this has nothing to do with this. This has to do with, shit that happened to me when I was 6.
Yeah.
And people don't want to acknowledge, that we're all just a fucking ball of trauma. And we're just constantly responding to shit that happened to us 20, 30 years ago. But until you become really self-aware and really start working on it, anytime someone looks at you and it's like, you're getting real defensive about this, that is the moment for you to figure out where this shit is coming from. Like, don't double down and be like, oh, fuck you, I hurt you so much. Just stop for a second. And the first time you do it will be so fucking difficult. The first time I ever really looked inside, it was like trying to tear, like I was standing behind myself, digging claws into my back and trying to pull this other person away, this defense mechanism away from the conversation. It was so painful. But once I did, suddenly I got that space. And I was like, oh shit, oh damn. So anyway, what was the question?
I don't even remember either.
No, I mean, but that...
Chat, hive mind. What was the question?
I don't remember if there was one after what inspired
I think we answered one and then we segued into a new topic.
You asked a second one.
I don't remember what it was.
Went on a tangent. I can't remember either.
Well, tying into the conversation that we had.
It was, how do you find that golden moment?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
So the reason that I went into the DID thing is because the way my brain works is sort of like a spider web. Because there are literally like multiple people living in my brain. So everything gets processed by like 7 or 8 people simultaneously. So it's sort of like parallel computing. And so I essentially can run simulations over the course of a couple of seconds that will be like, okay, Felix has done this thing. He has decided to attack one of his party members. There's what are the potential results of this in the lore in this moment right now? And I'll run through like a couple dozen simulations in my head. And the weird thing is that I'm not actually running those simulations. Other people are running those simulations. My subconscious is essentially. And then it will return a little bit, like there might be in one simulation, oh my God, there's an opportunity for this. Oh shit, this could be, because they're running a simulation based on the lore of the world. And then this other one's like, ooh, there's an opportunity for this. And they're running a simulation based on the different character dynamics and the different party dynamics that are happening, and dynamics with different NPCs, like, ooh, there could be this cool thing. Ooh, there could be this cool thing. And if 3 or 4 simulations come back with, ooh, then I know that this is a moment that I should invest in, where I will come in as the storyteller and I will say, All right, here we go. This is super fabulous. Yes, you do this thing, and there will be sort of a moment in there where it'll be like, bing, right here. This is the opportunity now. And I will throw a little curveball in there, and magic will happen, you know? So,
Yeah, because it's pretty crazy. Like, I've started DMing a little bit here and there now. I've done a few games, and it's like the different mindset that it takes to be a DM compared to being a player is, I mean, like like you beyond compare. Because when I'm a player, I'm already of two minds, right? Like, I, as the player, want to solve the problem, like not solve the problem, but like have the most fun like game experience, like try a bunch of different things. But me as the character wants to solve the problem like as straight line as possible, and get to the end goal as soon as I can. And the thing is like I want to do that, but I know as the player that if I do get that and it's that easy, that straight line of a story, then I will be upset. So providing that experience as a DM is just so much more complex than I thought before.
well, and I think the Crunch makes a really good point that like, if you DM, you will become a much better player in at least one respect, which is the ability to understand when a story beat is happening.
Mm-hmm.
That there is, oh shit, this looks like I know, like when I'm playing a character, I will actively make choices that will give the DM a lot of options. Like I will set things up, and if the DM doesn't want to pick it up, if I lay it down and he doesn't want to pick it up, totally fine. It's just another aspect of my character that I get to use like later on and do a callback to, or help it define who this character is. But it's great that you can do that. And there's been many times when I've been at people's tables and they'll be like, that whole thing that happened with your character, like that was just off the cuff. Like I hadn't written that or anything, and it was because we did this thing. I was like, I know. And I'm very happy to like help tell that story 100%,
Me and you have studied improv, and just like being able to see those things and being able to give those softballs to not just the DM but like the rest of your party is like, it's so much, I feel like it's so much more fulfilling to be the person that gives up the softball than to be the person in the spotlight. Because it's just like, wow, look at this awesome thing they did. And like,
well, part of that I think is the ability to step back and like you throw the softball and then you get to watch what happens.
Yeah.
If you're the person in the spotlight, then you have to be the thing that's happening.
Yeah. Right.
And it very much a different sort of feeling. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think that it is really important for everyone to experience all different aspects of this game so that everybody can just be better at doing all of the cool shit that we love to see,
So it's so funny to think about. Like, you get into these situations and it's like, people think that the most fun part is to be the weird thing, when sometimes being the straight man or whatever is the thing that brings out more character. It's just like, why is everything weird happening around this person, like
right.
There's now Clunch on that note. So he says 100%, especially if you're a guest on a show. I think you should try to walk in the shadows and lift up the main characters. So I would debate that, not 100%, but somewhat. I think that most of the time, the reason that you are a guest on a show is because somebody has seen you do something fabulous on another show, or you bring something to the table that they want. And it is 100% okay to step into the spotlight. And it's a conversation that I've had with some of my players about do not lessen yourself. Do not make yourself smaller because you think people can't handle it. Just don't do it, because then you are diminishing everybody's experience. You don't get to do the thing.
One of my all-time favorite moments of Play Nerd Allies in general was I eat the Mind Flayer tadpole.
Absolutely.
That was
I was like jaw to the floor,
great.
like, oh my god.
I mean, that was, for me, that literally informed so much of the month-long adventure that we then went on. There was,
So good.
and the reason that it did is because I knew that I could do, so as a DM, a lot of times you want to sort of like try to write a story or a through line, some sort of like outline that is, you go from point A to point F, and the ultimate goal is to get to point F. And then there can be like section A1, A2, A3, if they do these things, and some side quests and that. But that was one of those moments where I realized, oh shit, I can just write, I can create a world, a narrative. And really what happened is I didn't create a narrative, I created a world that was cohesive. And it was one of my favorite worlds that we built. It was the walking city of Gehenna on the lower plane of Gehenna. And the reason I could do that is because I knew that the people on the stream would surprise the fuck out of me with everything that they were going to do. Right. And it didn't matter. That it was just going to be, it doesn't matter what situation I put them in, we're going to have a fabulous story. So essentially what I did was I created the fortune teller. And I created the bar that had like the super low level demon as a bartender,
And the goat leg.
And then there was the Rakshasa, and there was, somebody from one of the other from Dressai, like the big earth elemental guy, or the big earth genie, the
Tao, yeah.
And so I could create a city that was exactly what it needed to be, which was that sort of film noir space where this is where demons and devils have failed, in the abyss or in the hells. This is where they go to just try to hide for a while. Everybody's wearing like fedoras and trench coats because nobody wants to.
Yes.
And
the film noir crickets.
Yeah, I could just absolutely create that world and know that you all would do something interesting with it. And then the story could evolve out of what was happening with the characters instead of me trying to force a narrative,
Yeah.
So, thanks, Punch. You're great. Yes, absolutely the goddamn goal.
That is a really cool point, though, as a DM, and thinking about how, like, because we're not doing a module, because we're not doing like this specific thing, because it's more collaborative with the players, thinking about like, doing and creating adventures like that gives you so much more freedom, because you don't have to have every story beat, you don't have to have like these like grand twists. I mean, you can, but it's not as necessary.
I mean, let's be real. There's always a grand twist.
Totally. But I guess what I'm saying is those things, like those narrative things that keep the story interesting, don't need to be the focus of your planning. Yeah. And then you can add those things as things happen with the players, and have the story, be significantly more organic, because you have players that do things like that.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
That's the thing that I think Kyle does really well, actually, is like the it's easy for a DM to create a plot hook and then have that as their central focus. But with that, like, players can go off the rails or completely miss what the DM wants. And just the ability for Kyle to, instead of setting up a main plot hook, like set up like little like runways, even, or not even runways, but like have several
Well,
hooks.
it's literally like in that situation there were no hooks.
Yeah.
It was just I got to create the world, and you all like. And the thing was that there's you were on a mission to go and find a planar touchstone. You had to figure out what it was, where it was in the city, and how to grab it. And that was it. So I just got to create this whole city, and you all could go wherever the hell you wanted, and do all the things. Now, mind you, we had a time limit. It was a 4-week, it was a four episode arc.
Right.
There is there's and one of the things that I'll do is that the world keeps spinning regardless of what you all do. Like it's not my world does not rotate on the decisions you make. The world keeps happening, and when you miss stuff, it doesn't just disappear. It keeps going. And
Man, I'd love to have a character come in, or maybe someone come in, and have the opposite viewpoint. Like, for the most part, all of our characters have been very good or lawful or something like that. But seeing more conflict, seeing someone come in that actively tries to do the other thing and change the world to their own way, especially now that anybody that has the touchstone is controlling how the world will be at the end of the year, that would be amazing. Just
absolutely. There's I think that Clench makes another fabulous point. So this maybe sounds strange, but I feel Kyle is a very specific kind of DMing, which makes it little which you have to sort of get used to. But when it clicks, it's very radiating. So I think that this is another thing that I've been thinking about, because I'm considering going and starting on Start Playing. And that's going to be a totally different experience than this.
Right.
There's, for me, I think the big thing is you cannot have an ego when you sit at my table. You can't, because I will break it. Like, it's just, I will call you out on your shit, and I will break it. If you want to be the star, it's not going to happen. You're at the table with 4 or 5 other people. There is, and part of that is that once you get past the ego, you can really start participating in a true collaborative process. That's a big thing that you learn. Like, if you're a professional actor, it's one of the things that you learn in rehearsals. It's like, you have to get rid of your fucking ego in rehearsal. If you have an egotist in a rehearsal, it ruins everything. It makes the space completely unsafe for everyone else. And so it just destroys creativity, all that kind of stuff. And so when you come to the table, there have been moments when everyone feels comfortable enough to truly let go and be vulnerable. And that's the whole thing. Once you're okay with being vulnerable at a table, you can create amazing art. But if you are, if your ego is in charge, or if there are issues, like, one of the things that I have to remind my players of on a regular basis is just, if the roll doesn't go your way, do not complain about it. Do not get whiny and shitty because you didn't win that roll. You can't win the roll. Like, this isn't, you are not at a craps table. So it's just, if you have a bad roll, if you fail at something, roll with it. Fucking roll with it. Tell me an amazing story about how you fell down in the middle of combat and your dagger is getting kicked all over the floor and you are crawling after it through this party trying to get it back.
That's one of the biggest misconceptions of playing D&D, the game, is that, well, first of all, there is a way to win and lose D&D. The way to win is when everybody is having a fun time and they want to play again. And the way to lose is to do the exact opposite. Make it like it's not fun for anybody else, and you have made it to where you are not playing again.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where I've definitely had to gently say goodbye to some players. You know, like I don't like to do like a whole bit like fuck you, I can't follow your group and shit. And I'm like,
right.
Not everybody's right for every single table, and that's totally true. Just like I am not right for every single table. You know, if you drop me into the middle of a bunch of like super crunchy adventures where everyone's interested in, you know, their roles and their optimized turns and all that kind of stuff, I will be so bored and I will hate what you are doing. And like, as a DM, like, okay, yes, let's spend the next 2.5 hours getting through these 2 rounds of combat. And you can explain to me you can read the description of everything on your character sheet to me, even though I have read it on several occasions myself. That's some people adore it, where it's literally just a puzzle to be solved. You know, and it's sort of like a video game at that point. It's like, which feats do I use? Which actions do I take in order to beat this thing that's in front of me? You know, it's not my kind of game. You know?
Punch says, when I see a trap, I want to walk into it. That trap is there, not for nothing. No dismantling.
It's something, honestly, that as a DM I feel is a failing of mine. I don't put enough traps. Like, there was the temple, which had a bunch of traps in it. But after that, I haven't really used a whole lot. And in large part because we have not gone places that required traps.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember there was one, it wasn't so much a trap when Guille was DMing the hunters, when we got to the entryway of some temple complex, and you and the other dwarf that we had came together, and you like were doing runes and like doing a bunch of different stuff, and it felt awesome because everyone was doing something to solve this problem. It wasn't just hit point wells, you know, hit point saves.
It wasn't just sleight of hand, pick the lock.
Yeah.
Right. You know, do an acrobatics check to avoid the trap, you know, and disarm it at the end of the hallway. Like, I love really interesting traps. There's one, if you love a good trap, there's actually one of the Magnificent Mythologies that we created is just a whole adventure where the entire third act is you in this crazy friggin' complex trap. So I much prefer like a good complex trap. And for those of you who don't know like the difference, like this, that's a very specific mechanic.
Yeah.
In D&D, you've got like your regular traps, which are like you step on this tile and a fireball gets thrown. You know, like that's a basic trap where you can like sort of like find the mechanism and stop it, and then that just stops that trap. A complex trap is something that usually has 3 or 4 different moving parts, and gets more dangerous every single round. and you have to do a couple of different things to get the trap to stop. So like the simplest one is something like you are in a tomb and everything is on a slope and you're just in, there's only like the hallway that's wide enough for like somebody to walk in, and then you set off the trap, and what it is that at the bottom of this ramp you have got a portal, and anything that goes through that portal gets transported to the top of the ramp. And suddenly a big boulder comes rolling down the ramp. And as soon as it hits that portal, it gets transported back to the top of the ramp and goes even faster. And comes down faster and faster and faster. And there's no room for you to dodge it. So you either have to just keep taking damage as you try to climb this ramp and get out of the way, or you have to find a way to stop the boulder. Or you have to find a way to like destroy the portal or something like that. And then you've got like more complex things where it might be like there's 4 different triggers, and it's like, okay, you know, you walk into the room and suddenly spikes started popping up from the floor. So you're gonna take 1d4 damage every round from these spikes. But every round, the spikes come up a little further. So now you're taking like 2d4 or 3d4 damage as you move. And there's like fireballs being thrown at you. And if you can stop like where the fireballs are coming from, then that'll stop that part of the trap. But it won't stop the trap in the floor. And then there's the swinging blades. And it can get as complex as you want it to. But a good DM creates something where there are ways to deal with it without just immediately getting murdered. You know?
Yeah. I tend not to like just the one-off traps. Personally, I feel like that they slow down the game, especially because my propensity to be like, oh, if there's traps, to like feel the need to check for them, which is obnoxious, and you know, and it's like, okay, you know, yeah, you step on it, you get hit with an arrow, and now you're down hit points, and like that's the end of it. Like now you're weaker, and I don't know. I find that not as interesting as something like the complex one.
One of the things that I had to learn, like, and I learned specifically in the temple complex as we were moving through it, is I was making you guys roll for everything. And if you did not specifically say, I want to inspect this part of this room, I'd be like, okay, well, you didn't know, you need to identify very specifically where you're going to go. And I've learned as a DM that it's like, if somebody says I want to inspect a room, they're checking everything. And you can say, okay, if you want to inspect the entire room, it's going to take you about 20 minutes, you know, to do that. Do you want to take the time? You know, totally fine. And then you do the roll and you see whether or not they caught it, you know, and you can give them advantage if there's, you know, like the one that they use in like the DM's guide is there's a trapdoor under a rug, you know. And if you just say, I want to inspect the room, you can make them do it at disadvantage because they're not looking for anything specific. But if they say, I want to inspect the floor, or I want to inspect if there's anything that can be moved, something like that, you give them advantage on, you know. And understanding that too, that it's like, you know, if there's just a huge number of traps in a room, you know, there's that essentially that's going to be the entire session as people are just trying to get through this room. So make it interesting if you're going to do something like that. Don't just sit there and say, there's a bunch of traps and you have to disarm all of them. And I spent 3 hours creating all of these traps for you. Doesn't matter. Like, you know, I played in a campaign at one point where there was something like that, but it was like a whole complex. You had to go around and you like in order to open some stuff up. And what he had done is that if you disarm each of the traps before you trigger them, you will never be able to get into the center because the trap triggers, and then what that does is it triggered one letter of the password.
Hmm.
So if you disarm the trap, you never find out what that letter is. So everybody went through, disarmed all the traps, and then the GM was like, yeah, there's no way to get inside now. Like, what do you mean? He's like, you actively have to like let the traps go. So you can figure out ways to do that safely, but you're not going to ever find the password unless you let this happen. And it was great because we spent like half the session going through disarming everything, and then half the session figuring out how to reset those traps.
That's good. You could reset them. I'm like, that would be like, oh, you can never get in there. Okay, now you have to leave. I'd be like, oh.
Well, and it was lovely for us because at that point, that gave us a lot of inspiration because we were gifted a stronghold in this campaign. It gave us a shitload of inspiration for traps that we set up in our stronghold. And then we knew how to like mechanically how to make that happen, you know. So
the real trap is playing D&D in the first place. That's how they get you.
Absolutely.
You know, like
absolutely. We are every time you play D&D, you are actively selling your soul.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Oh my God. I saw a poll from one of my favorite YouTubers, and it's like, why is D&D getting so popular recently? And it was like, Roll20, Critical Role, and then the final one, Stranger Things, and then the final one was straight up Satanic Panic rituals that are from the 70s that are finally working, and it's just like that one, yes,
It's been delayed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, it's amazing what Critical Role has done for the space. Like the space literally wouldn't be here if Critical Role wasn't. And I think that the next one is Stranger Things. You know, the fact that it's so D&D centric has been huge for that. And I'm just so happy about that. I love being able to do this multiple times a week. It's amazing. So yeah. So I'm curious if anybody in the audience has any crazy questions for us as far as where inspiration comes from or things like that. I personally, Mike, I wanted to ask you, first off, which one is your favorite character that you've played so far on
That's a great question.
on our fabulous streams? And what was your inspiration for that character?
Oh man. Okay. That's a really hard question because I love all of my characters equally, but that's bullshit.
Lies in the sea.
Oh God. Felix was definitely like a breakout role type thing for me. Because I remember I'm gonna go with Felix as my favorite one, because if you guys remember when I was coming into Planar Allies, the idea of Felix was completely different than when I started playing as the Mousefolk Bard, because I started playing and the idea I wanted him to be like some kind of nobility human and something like super boring. And then you guys were like, oh no, that sounds like this race that we have, you know, and I was talking about like some of his characteristics. And just getting to play someone that just had a mouth on him and like got himself into trouble
all the
time, was getting Bigby's handed by Corton, dying like 4 times, like straight up dying, not even like just going down. That was so much fun, you know. But
yeah, so your thing, so Felix's thing was dying, Dirax's thing is getting knocked out in combat.
Yeah. So I remember specifically the conversation we had about Felix, because I think originally Felix was a human.
Yeah.
And I was like, we just created this new, like, I was like, make a character from Valencia because we had just created
That's
it.
what it was.
I was like, he could be Mousefolk. He'll be like in the Mafia. That was what sold it.
The OG party as well made it so much better because you had like two people, I think two or three of the other players characters were like super depressed, didn't want to talk a lot, and then you had
we definitely had some friggin' edgelords
right
in that original fucking party. Oh.
And then Gorf, who like Felix was supposed to be the healer, by the way, and I don't think he used a healing spell once the entire time.
Well, it's astonishing because Felix came in and there was a cleric in the party.
A full-on cleric.
Yeah.
Full cleric in the party that never healed anyone.
Yeah, I remember
And
being really upset because they just wasted their spell slots the first fight on things that Gorf was like two-hitting, and I'm like this is when I was really like min-maxy. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Felix.
No, but that's the thing is like when I got in, Gorf because I think I was just after the cleric. Because Gorf looked at the party and was like, "Don't heal me unless I go down. Like that's it."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, I won't heal you." But just having like that gruff Gorf character, having some edgelords and everything, and then having some like whimsical mouse dude with a lute, and just being like kind of crazy and quirky, just like that makes sense, like but getting to bring out that energy from the other characters who before were just like why are we all like upset, like we're about to get a bunch of money, like we're about to own part of this mine.
It was definitely like the original cast that started out 14 months ago was not if most of them came to my table now, there would be a couple that I would be like, so happy to have you here, this is great, and there's definitely a couple that I'd be like, this isn't the spot for you.
No thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know myself as a DM well enough at that point to be able to identify specifically the things that were really pissing me off.
I remember me and you had hour-long conversations about how we were both frustrated and trying to figure out how to like
oh my God.
work through it and work together because they were also at that time a part of the business, and we were like, this isn't even fun sometimes.
It was, so they were very much so I'm all about character and consistency and integrity of the world and integrity of character. Not necessarily meaning that you do everything right, but that if you establish psychologically who your character is in your backstory, that you don't get to then break the lore that you wrote yourself without some consequences.
Yeah, just because you feel like it or it's convenient, which is typically what people want to do.
So you have like a cleric who is the cleric of a god of peace, who goes up to another party member, not even an NPC, another party member, and just straight up says, if you ever lie to me again, I will cut your fucking head off and I will mount it on my temple wall. And I'm like, you just lost half of your spells.
Yeah.
Like, you literally just lost half your spell slots.
What the
That is,
fuck?
Are you kidding me? Your god is a god of peace, and you just threatened to like cut someone's head off. At another point, they threatened to they actually tortured someone. Like, so I'm like, this is not a god. Like, if you want to, if your god is neutral and this is part of it, totally fine. Jump in there.
Or there's like some progression that like leads to that eventually as your character develops or grows, but not a leap.
Or even, and I think that I gave them this out too that they chose not to take, was like, hey, you maybe you got kicked out of your temple for doing all this crazy shit. and you've got to find a way to curb that and to be better.
Or like, are you questioning your god? Like, are you not
What's
jiving
going on
with your
there?
god? Because clearly you're not super peace.
Right? It's like if you want to convert, I mean, there are options, right? But
Totally.
Absolutely. No, it's real easy. You just say, I'm worshiping a god now.
yeah, I mean, that's what I
Hold
did
on.
with Reginald. I was like, now that we're like, there's a shifting of the age, like this character does not want to damage people that much anymore, and so he doesn't want to be a storm cleric. He's going to go back to what he likes doing, which is knowledge stuff. So he's a knowledge cleric. But
Yeah, so, all right, we do have a question from chat.
yes,
I think we have several.
Your,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on the Blood Hunter class? So, I hate it so much.
why?
I hate it so much because for me, like as a DM, this is the class that you can't stand because by third level, there's 6 things you have to do every round. Like you have to identify this thing. You have to say I'm putting my mark over here, but I'm doing my curse over here, and then I'm doing this, and then I'm doing that, and also I'm gonna do this thing, and also I'm gonna like it's the class where it's like, are you done yet? Like, nope. So
Yeah,
I'm also gonna do this. All right, is that the end of your turn? Nope. I'm also gonna do this. And I'm just like
that's a 6-hour game class, not a 3-hour.
It is a
Yes.
really
Yes.
mechanically heavy class.
yeah, and it's I get it. I get that it's an interesting class and it can be fun to, but it also just it does not work with my brain.
Is
Like
this
I don't
is this one
really
of
get
Mercer's?
the class.
Yeah.
This one's one of Mercer's? Yeah.
Yeah. So Mercer had the Blood Hunter and the Gunslinger, and they got
Right.
rid of the Gunslinger. So it's just the Blood Hunter now.
There's a new one that he made too, where it's like a gravity. Oh, is that the Gravity Barbarian UA, or is that different from what he made?
I think it's a different UA,
Okay,
but I
because
can't remember right now.
I know the barbarian that they currently have in their party is like a gravity something barbarian. So
Sure, but what are your thoughts on Blood Hunter?
I've never gotten to play it. It looks like fun, but I'm not sure. Lando, what do you think?
So it is a mechanically heavy class. I think only way that I like the concept. The concept's cool. It is a kind of a narrower backstory, which is fine. You have to play a specific kind of character, which is fine. I like the opportunities for roleplay, but because of how mechanics heavy it is, you really have to really know your character sheet.
Yeah.
If I was playing it here, we'd have to know it really, really well in order to not bog it down for the rest. If you're playing in a home game and like mechanics
And
are
you can spend
more
6 hours.
yeah,
Then
it's fine. It's fine. It's cool. I don't think it's like particularly overpowered. I don't think it's particularly like broken in any kind of way necessarily. There's just a lot of mechanics, a lot of things to think about, and when you're focusing more on roleplay, it's hard to
and
balance.
that's a big thing at our table is like narrative combat where you're not dealing with all of these mechanics, and it destroys narrative combat if you have to keep referencing your sheet. Like you have to know what's going on with your character so that you can just be like, oh shit, I'm gonna do this thing right now. Like this is gonna be fabulous.
Oh, and you did mention that it's your first class. I wouldn't recommend it as your first class, but each his own. If you like jumping in the deep end and learn how to swim that way,
absolutely,
more power to you.
It's great. I think it's actually great for a first class because every other class is going to be so simple after that. Like if you've got this down, you're good to go. There's and thank you, Josh, for letting me know. Gunslinger is a fighter archetype. I forgot about that. Yes. So is it still in there?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
not to be mistaken for the Pun Slinger, which is a bard school.
Absolutely.
Reading aloud.
I love it. What school would that actually be? The Punslinger.
Eloquence.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but okay. Devil's advocate. Are puns eloquent?
Yes, absolutely yes.
I mean, the vast majority of humorists would let you know that it is the lowest form of humor. But
Excuse you, it is the highest pinnacle of comedy. I'll have you know.
I will say you have to have a very quick mind to pull the puns out, or you have to have a whole bunch of them memorized and just ready to pull out in specific situations. There's, I agree. You could absolutely make a punslinger class that is, oh my God, you know what it would be? It would be a fighter class that's similar to a gunslinger, except it's all practical jokes. Or maybe an artificer class where you create like little joy buzzers and like you have like a little gun that says bang on it instead, you know.
And your party wants to kill you just as much as your enemy.
Yeah,
absolutely.
In that case, it's got to be swashbuckler because you got to dodge all of the punches coming at you from these people trying to kill you for making puns. Yeah,
I did want to circle back to a question that Clunch asked earlier that we.
Yes, what is it?
Was wow, why am I not seeing it? It's supposed to be in green. Oh, I don't see it anymore. But paraphrasing, the question was along the lines of, how afraid are you to lose your characters, and would you be okay with them dying? Which
is a
how scared are the players of losing their characters, and would they mind losing them?
Okay, I got pretty close.
There's I'm gonna say before we answer that question, we've been going for about an hour and a half. Let's take a little break.
Yes.
Hey, everybody at home, hit !raffle to enter the fabulous raffle for Phoenix Dice. Go over to heroforge.com and support our fabulous supporter. Make you a delightful character in like 5 minutes and then bring it back and show it off. And make sure that you go hydrate yourself, do all the fun stuff, do the self-care, because self-care is health-care. And we will be back in just a few moments.
All right. Bye.
Hello again.
Hey, we're back.
Welcome. I hope you all got to hydrate, do all the fun stuff.
Oh, yeah.
There's I see that Mike has asked, are there any OP D&D builds that you want to share? I mean, I've got some. They're all homebrew. So.
Well,
homebrew's fun. I mean,
does that count though? I mean,
yes.
Homebrew can just be intrinsically overpowered just because it's homebrew.
Well, my favorite homebrew race is literally taken directly from 3.5. So it's fairly balanced. What it is it gives you extra ways to use your spell slots, especially when you're like higher level. They're called the Elan, and they're a psionic race that have the ability to do all kinds of fun stuff. What they would do is you would use, so in 3.5 they had PowerPoints, and what you could do is you could use some of your PowerPoints to do things like stop damage or give you like bonuses to your saving throws. And they were immediate actions, so you could use them as many times in a round as you wanted. Here they would be reactions, so you could only choose one per round. But essentially what I did is like, hey, you can gain resistance to any damage type that you want. by utilizing different levels of spells. And depending on how common that damage type is, like if it's very common, it could be a first level spell. If it's like necrotic damage or something like that, that's much less common, then it might be a third or fourth level spell slot that you have to spend to gain the resistance. But you can do it as a reaction, so you can gain advantage on your saving throws, you can gain resistance to damage, and all that kind of stuff. And oh my god, I love it. There's a homebrew race called the Muppet Born, where you are literally a Muppet and always have half cover because you are only half the body.
Wow.
Okay, but in the spirit of going back to the question that we had before we went on our break, because we forgot about that, about characters and dying and such. In the spirit of that, I can answer first. I think for Gorf specifically, I probably answer this question differently for Diraxis. Gorf specifically, I'm not necessarily afraid of him dying. However, if he died like in a mechanical way, where he like failed his 3 saving throws or whatever in like just some random fight, that's what I'm probably more afraid of. I'm not afraid of him dying if it's impactful and it's worth the story elements and how it either doesn't have to change the world, but like the emotion behind it and like the crescendo of his life ends in a way that's fitting. I could be okay with rolling it up another character. I think outside of that, I would be devastated.
Right.
You know, like I have always loved, ever since I was a kid, like the trope of like last man on the bridge. And I've always found something so beautiful about that. You know, because for me, in like my religion, I believe like there's heaven, I believe all this stuff. But like the thing that really gets me, like, is that where like in the story, like there's not necessarily a place, but people are still willing to give up their lives, even though they gain nothing for it, because it's like, because that's and like that's what gets me, honestly. So
Absolutely.
Diraxis, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
Diraxis. Diraxis is interesting. I really like Diraxis. I really want to see where Diraxis' story is going. I think it wouldn't have to be as crazy of a death for me to be okay, but there'd still be like something. Basically, I don't want them to die because I rolled poorly, essentially.
Yeah.
And
well, nobody wants their character to die because they rolled poorly. And I think that's one thing that 5e does really well, is it is very difficult for a character to die.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to actively try to like kill your character.
Thank you for the follow, Big Show.
I mean, there's also the option of just making real bad choices and refusing to acknowledge. Like, and that's a big thing for me in D&D is characters can learn.
Yeah.
You know, your character, just like you, I mean, if you're the type of person that never learns your lesson, well, go home and learn some lessons, please, before you.
At the very least, know the difference between when your DM is doing a poker face and when your DM is straight up like, please do not do this, you will die. You know, because it's like,
there's a huge difference there. And there have been a couple of moments where I have let my players know, like, this is not for you, sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's okay to run away. There are gonna be things out there that are more powerful than you. And if you just keep pissing this thing off, it'll just step on you. And you won't get any, and no, you will not get death saving throws. You won't. If you're level 3 and this Taras that was just walking by and doesn't actually care about you at all, if you keep pissing it off, it will literally just pick its foot up and step on you, and you will be no more. And that's it. And I think that's a big thing too, is character growth, characters learning. Mike, would love for you to share Felix's death.
Yeah, so Felix's death, like I said, he's definitely my favorite character that I've played. It was crazy because I had talked to Kyle about it before, and it was a necessary thing that needed to happen because I was going to school. And in the moment of that session where if you guys haven't watched the episode, spoilers, my character is infected with this malice and evil and necromantic magic and turns against the party. I think that was a very epic moment, and I think it was 100% how it ended was such a blessing to the character, to that character of Felix, who genuinely loved his party, and I think it was honorable. I think it was a very good moment.
I think it was great, and it's one of those things, like, if you're DMing and one of your players has to leave the table, and it's an amicable leaving, obviously there will be times when you just don't want somebody at your table anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's it. But if they are leaving for some reason that, is just can't be helped, have a conversation with them about how they want their character to leave. Do you want, the conversation that I had with Mike was, do you want this character to still be around so that you can come back for like one shots? Like, do you just want him to be existing somewhere in the world? Or do you want a crazy, ridiculous, epic death? And he chose crazy, ridiculous, epic death, which was a very Final Fantasy death. It was, here is version 1, and then a third of the way through the fight, suddenly it morphs into, oh, now they're even more powerful, and oh shit. And there was version 3 when he came back to help destroy version 2, like, because he'd been made an angel. So there's something like that where you get to have that fabulous emotional roller coaster, that allows you to just do all the things and to really celebrate that character in a fabulous way, I think is super important. So yeah, thank you, Mike, for letting us do that craziness, which I love because none of the other players knew. Like, we did all of this in secret, and so suddenly it looks like Felix just turned on the whole party and tried to kill all of them. And I was like, and the only instruction was actually try to kill them.
Yeah.
Like,
and I did. I almost killed Crow. I almost did. That would have been dope. But I think as far as current characters, I think that Reggie is definitely second, like, favorite, because if just all of the arc of his character now, I think that I'd be very sad if I lost this player, if I lost this character, if I couldn't play Reginald anymore, because I want to sit in those moments. I haven't actually gotten to explore the emotions of Reginald, like, I've set up a few things, but at this point, if Reginald were to just outright die or something, then it would feel incomplete, and I would,
Absolutely. Well, Josh has a question. What are your thoughts on homebrew classes and subclasses? I'm a huge fan if they're well balanced. if it's something that can be utilized to tell a fabulous story, because D&D has a million options, right? But as far as if you look at Pathfinder, there's a trillion. You can literally be anything that you want in Pathfinder. Now, mind you, it's a much crunchier setting. It's just there's a lot to deal with when creating a character.
2E is a little bit better, I'll say.
Yeah, there is, but I love well-constructed subclasses, especially, because they can bring something new and unique to the campaign that you've never seen before. And it's great for a DM because suddenly there's this new challenge. Like, how do you face, these are powers that you've never seen before? How do you, deal with, somebody that is, you've been doing the whole campaign about fiends, and this person is, immune to hellfire,
Right.
whatever that looks
Right.
like.
Also, for me, homebrew stuff is fine. I don't have a problem with homebrew stuff, but I think Lando can kind of sympathize with me. I'm a rules guy, so I try to see how far I can get into a world with the pre-existing mechanics and things that are already part of it, and just try and break it from there. But
well, that's one of the things that I'm sort of missing in 5e. Everyone like people think that these subclasses are sort of specialized, right? And they're not. These are still very general archetypes that you're dealing with.
Oh, totally.
In 3.5, you had all these prestige classes, and those were the things that would really specialize. And there were some that I adore because it's in reality, here, one of the things that you see anytime there are enough resources in a society is people start specializing. And for instance, in the United States, because we have more resources than anyone else on the planet, we have now specialized to the point where it used to be that a restaurant would just be a tavern. It was just a tavern attached to an inn, and there would be one thing that you would make, and that was it. That was what was being served that day. There wasn't a menu. It was, oh, we found mushrooms. We went out foraging, and so we're doing a mushroom soup tonight. Oh, we decided it's a special celebration. We're slaughtering a pig, so today it's pork, and then we're gonna have pork sausages for the next week. And now there's okay, do you want to go to the vegan cat cafe, or do you want to go to the barbecue place next door that's all meat, or do you want to go to the Italian place, the Chinese place, the Thai place, the Mexican place? There's just, we've got every single kind of food available because we have the resources to specialize. Same thing in the medical field. It's no longer that you have just a cardiologist. You've got a cardiologist with a specialty in ventricle issues, or arterial issues or something like that, So we can get super specialized. So I love seeing that in a subclass or a class where it's you trained yourself to do something really, really well. And the other reason I love it is because there's great role play if you're in a situation where that thing comes into play. What do you do?
I think that's kind of where Rangers go too far, if we had a good in between, because Rangers are so specialized that it's okay, if you're not fighting one of your favored enemies, that's you're just, why not just play a fighter? But
well, the thing is that if you actually look at favorite enemies in 5e, there's no actual, you're thinking of a different thing. There's no actual combat mechanic attached to your favorite foes. to your favorite enemies.
It's just
There's
for like
favorite
tracking.
foes. Yeah, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
for if you do the original Ranger thing, they're super good at finding people.
Mhm.
You know, they're super good at making sure that while you're out in the wilderness, you're gonna survive and everything's gonna be fine, and hunting and foraging, setting up camp and all that good stuff.
Right.
And
Yeah, I don't
but
think there's a thing.
there is, I think it was Tasha's
Hmm.
that gave us favorite foe. And that's the one where you give up your favorite enemies, but in combat, you can say, that's my favorite foe,
Hmm.
and do extra damage to it every round.
Gotcha.
And then you can switch it whenever you want. Because that was a 3.5 thing about Rangers is your favorite enemies, not only could you understand them and track them, you knew their history and all that kind of stuff, you knew their weaknesses, you would also get combat advantages on it. You could do extra damage and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's I love that. Rodolph. The class is restaurant, subclass is specialty restaurant, and you multi-class into fusion restaurants.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If
Oh,
you were gonna make a like subclass of like a chef, what would you make that under? Would it be bard?
It depends on how you're looking at it. I would say for
Yeah.
a chef, it would be bard because cooking is an art. If it is a pastry chef, I would say artificer because baking is a science.
Hmm.
That'd be interesting though.
That's a good
I would love to
distinction.
see someone like, if not like make a new subclass, like reflavor one of the bard subclasses to make them a chef. That'd be
Soon, Clark. Sleep well. Yeah, I think that would be super fabulous. I'm looking at things like they had, for instance, there was like a rogue subclass that was just for knife wielders, or not subclass, prestige class in 3.5. It was just for knife wielders. They made you super hard to hit if you were dual wielding knives. Didn't work with swords or anything like that, but it was for that knife wielding rogue that has like a bandolier of like 40 knives on them at all times. So you've always got that. It gave you all kinds of fabulous AC advantages. It gave you like the ability to throw a bunch of knives in a round, you know, and just like it made it so easy for you to hit and to crit, you know, on these things. So while you were using the weakest weapons in 3.5, if you did this prestige class, suddenly you were just a insane damage dealer on the battlefield. And then you have something like the cleric prestige class that was all about the disciple of Pelor, which like by the time you finish this prestige class, all of your healing spells are maximized and empowered, meaning that they would do maximum healing plus half again as much healing. So you've got like what is it like? Cure wounds is like 2d8 plus 4. Is that what cure wounds is?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, so you would do, so it's 2d8 plus 4. That's potentially 20 points of damage.
It's 1d8 plus your ability modifier.
Okay, so let's say you've got 1d8 plus, let's say plus 4. So in that situation, every single time you cast Cure Wounds on somebody, it would do 18 points of healing. The first level spell would suddenly do just insane amounts of healing.
Just statically 18 points?
Yeah, just automatically. Yeah. There's a so having something like that where it's like it's all about healing spells, like all of your other spells suffer, but like for Pelor it was all about healing and light spells. So like all of your like, so in this situation it would absolutely be like a whole thing about healing and radiant damage, you know. There's all right, so let's look back
I would say
You missed.
about some
The
classes
Phantom,
is
enjoy fabulous dinner. Another one from Josh. Um, with the campaign being very narrative based, what made you choose to go with the Gestalt characters? Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, the reason that I did that is because of Lando. Lando had said that he had been reading that the most fun section of campaigns is typically between levels 5 and 10 because you can still be hurt. It's still difficult to do some things, but you have enough abilities and interesting things happening that it's super fun. And so we had just gotten to like, I think level 8 or something. And
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Let's just do this. So I created the well, the Gestalt, the touchstone. And it gave everybody a Gestalt character. What that did was it shoved them down to level 4 in 2 classes.
Yeah.
And then they had to come back up again. So
I think why it works so well is because our games are more mechanics based than they are numbers based. And so when you have multiple classes, you have more option to do things, especially when we're talking about narrative combat. So the kinds of things that you can feasibly do, I mean, obviously with narrative combat, you can do some crazy, outrageous things that you have no business doing in the regular game.
yes.
But having more mechanics to draw from helps with inspiration, helps with different kinds of things that could be interesting, which honestly has really kind of adjusted the way I've thought about just the game as a whole and thinking about, okay, the numbers don't matter all that much. It's like, what kind of mechanics do I have? And then what could I do that's, relatively adjacent to that? And then doing something like that.
So for me, I really like it when somebody, instead of trying to do something adjacent to it, literally takes 2 completely opposing actions and says, I've got these 2 classes, so I can make this work. So it would be like, for me, something like like some tiny like fighter slash sorcerer, that literally casts the catapult spell on themselves and launches themselves into battle, doing extra damage with their first attack because of that impact. Like that's shit like that. Absolutely.
Totally. But
yes.
I would argue that that is, adjacent to what the skills are. They're not implied. It's not like implicit. But the fact that you have the ability to cast yourself or to do catapult, and the fact that you're a fighter, that you could potentially, gain an advantage by flying through the air at someone. So there's some like for example, Gorf isn't just gonna like cast like mass healing, like that's ridiculous, But there's other things that are like not on his character sheet. But the best way I've thought about it is think about your character in an anime, because I've realized that narrative combat mirrors anime, especially like shonen anime, so much because like no one ever in those shows ever talks about power level, like any kind of numbers. It's all this arbitrary. Okay, mostly, but it's all this kind of arbitrary, and the audience is like, and as a viewer, you're like, oh, like I know what this guy's done. I have no idea about this guy. And then they keep like unlocking and showing these powers, and you're like, surely he won't be able to defeat him. Surely, and it's all narrative. It's all you assign power because of the narrative, which is
the fun part.
Well, it's for me like it's things like finding new and interesting ways to use things that have been around forever. Like just off the top of my head, like if you were like a rogue or a monk, something like that, and you multi-classed into like druid, and you could cast stone spikes. You know, like there is, which is like this huge area where suddenly stone spikes appear and everybody that walks on them, takes damage. I would love to do something like as a monk where it's not that spikes come up from the ground. You like focus your ki into absolute speed, and nothing seems to happen on the ground, but every time anybody takes a step, you are suddenly there, like punching their foot or kicking them in the ankle or something like that. So every 5 feet that they take, you're just there kicking them in the shin, and then you go back to where you were. And that's the damage that everybody takes, instead of just having stone spikes.
Or
For me, the cool thing about the gestalts that Kyla set up is finding out how stuff would work. Like when we were creating the new characters for season 3, the new character creation stuff, I was thinking about creating a druid artificer, just because like those are kind of completely opposite elements. It's mechanics and in nature, and just seeing how something like that would work in the world is the most fun thing for me. It's like just doesn't matter about the mechanics at that point. It's just throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. It's just craziness.
Well, and that's something that I am very proud of myself when it comes to being able to figure out how to make the spaghetti stick.
Yeah.
In a way that doesn't break the lore, doesn't break the characters, and it's interesting. That there is. So, let's see. So we're back to the chef question. Chef, apparently it's barbarian. Tell me Porter Ramsey and rate the shows. Absolutely. Well, I mean, we have a barbarian chef. Gork is, in fact, a barbarian chef. So
it's not as much of a personality, or it's not as much intrinsic to the character as like a subclass for chef would. But it's definitely part of his. It's like a hobby. It's like a hobby.
Absolutely. Divine Nation apparently thought that I was Jack Black for a second. I mean, close. I mean, almost as famous. Like,
basically there, Kyle. I mean,
yeah. I mean, pretty much. I expect a call from Jack any day.
Right.
Yeah, sue you for impersonation.
Yeah.
100%. As a DM, what level do you prefer to start a characters when starting a campaign? So these campaigns, we started them at level 1. But I honestly prefer like level 3. Yeah. I like characters to have some knowledge of what's going on, so then, because we've all seen the we all met in a tavern type thing. I love starting a campaign where people sort of know each other, like where that's the trope, because then you can have shared history, and if you are good storytellers and you are good at yes and, you can help develop each other's histories by being like, remember when we did this thing that one time?
Right.
Yeah.
And then you can just get that story going, and it's fabulous. And sometimes it'll just be a stupid little thing that you said, and you spent 3 minutes on, and it was cute and delightful. And sometimes it turns into a whole arc,
Just having that background to draw from that everybody is connected to, it gives so much more life to the story. If I've seen so many times now to where people try and make a character and they're like, oh, I don't really have a background, and it's like you got no wants, no needs, nothing, like that. That's enlightenment, dude. Like that's you did it. You don't have anything else to do.
On the other hand, one of the things that I look at is I'm totally fine if you want your character's backstory to happen organically in the story.
Yeah.
If you want to come in and be mysterious and be like, well, I don't really have that's totally fine. See how you interact with the other characters, and we can develop a backstory based on that. I just want it to have integrity and to be something that is fun for you and useful for me in order to pull on so that we can have little stories, you know?
I was just saying, like, having something to start with, having a launch pad is better than having nothing. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, you kind of point the compass in the direction. I mean, you fill in the. I mean, that's kind of what I did with both of my characters. Actually, I had like a kind of loose kind of idea of who I wanted them to be, and then the backstory kind of filled in, and it took me a while to figure out who they were, but now I feel really, really comfortable with who they are,
Absolutely.
even though I couldn't tell you the exact details of their backstory.
Well, and that's the thing too, is especially if you're coming into a homebrew setting, there's no way for you to know everything about this setting.
Right.
So writing 6 pages of a backstory isn't necessarily super useful in that situation, because half of what you write might go against the lore of the planet that has been created. And it's one of those things where you do want to make the players happy, but think about how many hours this person has spent creating this world and telling them your world isn't good enough for my character to play in. You have to fit all of this into the world that you created, and if that means you have to break your world in order to accommodate this character, at that point I'm just like, no thank you. It also lets me know that this is like, I had a conversation with a potential character at one point. It was like they're like, oh, I've got like literally have 5 pages of backstory, and I'm here for it if you know the world. So if it's like Forgotten Realms or something like that, absolutely, 100%. If you're calling on, oh, I am, a descendant of Hallister, I grew up in Undermountain and escaped on my 18th birthday and went through Skullport and worked for the Xanathar for a while, and then made my way up into the city and was working at Aurora's and all that kind of stuff. And then I met fabulous people, and now I'm an adventurer. Absolutely. 100%. Give me all of that backstory. I will tie all of it in. Great. But they were like, oh, I come from this and I do this and that other thing and here, and there's all of this stuff. And I'm like, literally, I would have to destroy like 3 countries and break the world again in order to make any of this backstory work. And they're like, well, this is the backstory that I want. And I'm like, okay, well, you're not playing it at my table then.
Josh says that they brought Zach in as a guest with no connections to the world, but they enjoyed themselves so much that they wanted to make a new character who is connected to the world. I was like, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that was the nice thing, is so Zach has their own history, but is coming from a different part of the multiverse.
Yeah.
And so that's delightful. It allows for you to maintain that history totally fine, and come in and do all the things necessary, So absolutely, yes. I love that.
That's why I wanted to do. I want to do the same thing, because Reginald was from somewhere else in the multiverse, and then after that, making Mimir, I was talking to Kyle, and I was like, I just want someone who is connected to someone we know in the world. Someone who has a reason to want the world to continue on, just from the jump, and that's where this character came in.
Absolutely. That's exactly how it should be. I love it. There's I think that there's room for, this is one of the things that I love about this game, is there's room for everyone. Whatever your style is, however you want to run that, however you want to play that, absolutely, you can do that. It is totally okay. I think we start running into some issues when people demand that when there is this idea that every table should accommodate every person, and it doesn't need to. Like, there's definitely people that do not want to play at my pace, and that's totally fine. Hold on just a sec. I'm having a little issue here. Can we go to break for just like 2 minutes?
Yeah, totally. All right. We'll see you guys in just a sec. Bye. Hey,
Hello
we're back.
again. Sorry about that little technical difficulty. Let's see. There is Josh says, I love the idea of the characters and the DM creating the world together. Absolutely, that is what should be happening at most tables. Even if you're playing a module, there should be, every module run should be different than the last because you're dealing with different people, you know. I adored how the Paths of the Planet started because I had several people starting countries on their own. Several of the players chose to start their own countries, which was great because what that meant is that for me as a DM, I then got to play in the sandbox of these other people. And we sat down and we had meetings that were like, hey, I'm going to ask you a million questions about your country. And if you can answer them right this second, great. If you can't, take some time, figure it out. Totally okay. And we will, build it that way. It was great because it gave, like, I'm very creative and I can create all kinds of fun worlds and countries and all that kind of stuff. But having people come at it from just a completely different space really meant that I was able to pull in so many different ideas that I think made the planet so much richer.
It made it an actual patchwork.
Yeah.
And we've only visited one continent so far. We're only on one continent.
Yeah.
So who knows?
I think that this campaign, this 3-season campaign, will probably just stay on that continent. That will be enough, and then we can head to a different continent when this campaign season is done, I think. So that'll be exciting. I'm very
foreshadowing.
Oh yeah, well we've already created a full continent that answers the question, what happened to the prismatic sleigh? So
I don't remember what was I there for that? What happened?
That was like the second or first episode of Wonders.
You don't, Lando, stop talking right now. Just nobody knows. You're the only one that knows because you were modding the channel when Connor and I created it. There is, so it's...
That one was for you, chat. That one was for you.
Mike, don't watch it.
So there's... the prismatic sleigh was the ship, essentially the spelljammer that everybody came in on, that all the super powerful people rode in on into this world. And nobody could figure out what had happened to it. And so we answered that. There's the prismatic plague. Ooh, I am gonna need to create something like that.
Oh no.
That'll be fun.
Oh shit.
That'll be very interesting. Something that what would I do with a prism? Okay, so we're gonna design an illness, do a little thought experiment here, a new disease, the prismatic plague. There's I would go one of two ways, and let me know what you all would do with this.
Yeah.
One way would be that when you caught it, the symptoms would be different for each person. You would roll a d8 to see sort of which symptoms.
Could it be based on blood type?
I'm not going to go that.
Okay, but that's fair.
Yes, I mean, understand that at that point, you would have to create an entire system for the planet of figuring out what blood type everybody is. That would have to be
okay. What you could say is you roll and then you just say the symptoms are based on blood type, and then that's all you have to say. That was what I was thinking.
It's never Lando. It would never end there. It simply would not end there. I would get endless questions from my players about, do I get advantage on this because I'm a negative? Can I
Sure.
I'm O positive, so I feel like I should get a proficiency in
I was just
perception.
trying to come up with a scientific reason for why it was random. Blood type seemed like a thing that
Well,
made sense. I'm
Here's
sorry.
the other thing.
And I appreciate that, but this is one of the things about this one of the things that is very difficult about game design and world building
Yeah.
is you have to understand what the ramifications of that's going to be. If you're going to add
I
a
see.
whole mechanic to the world, you have to like game it out. You have to sit there and say, okay, this. Here are 17 things that could go wrong with this, and how do they discover what it is? Because in order to cure it at that point, if we're trying to keep it scientifically based, you have to figure out what somebody's blood type was, and then you'd have to figure out how to cure that particular disease based on that particular blood type. And how do you do that?
I see what
You
you're
have to
saying.
set up hospitals and blood banks and scientists that are studying this on a regular basis. You know, like it's a whole thing that has to develop. Whereas if you just say it's magic,
What was the other way you wanted to go with it then?
That's true.
there's
The
but what I was saying was that you could absolutely do a thing where, you know, it presents as like different colored like bumps
mhm.
on your skin, and depending on what the bump is, that's the sort of disease damage type that it would be, you know, that would include up to, you know, like, oh shit, like my arm seems to be disappearing, but it's not disappearing, it's just now part of you is in, like, you rolled a 16, so part of your hand is in Elysium now,
Oh.
that you're slowly
Huh?
being transported to another plane, because that's one of the things that'll happen with prismatic spray.
Oh,
Is
gotcha.
You'll get transported, or slowly you're turning into stone or something like that, you know.
Spray or the wall? Is spray that
Both.
powerful?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The prismatic spells are specifically meant to be incredibly powerful. That's why, like, the prismatic spray is what, I think it's 8th level.
Oh, I thought it was like 5th or something.
Oh god, no.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No.
I like more the way like Josh is putting it. Josh said fumes from the Spelljammer ship have spread around an area and caused different effects depending on the color fumes. I was thinking, instead of making it so much prismatic, what kind of magic was the Spelljammer ship powered by? A bunch of different mages, banded
Nope.
together according to your short story. They all used different things to keep it together as you went through.
So the thing that it was made from was the still living hide of a Tyrax.
Right.
So that's where it got most of its protective power, and its mobility was from not just mages, but like Baylors and gold dragons. Like, they were all contributing to actually moving the ship forward. So it was a whole bunch of different things.
So
Yeah,
what if instead of like something to do with prismatic so much, it's like, you know how when people came across and saw like all of the Aztec cities, the Aztecs didn't have immunities to those other diseases, so they like died out because it was this alien virus. So what if it's something like that? Some alien, like the source of magic is different and it's eating away at the magic that's already within the people that are on this planet.
So at that point, you would have
like a spell
there's
plague.
a couple of ways you could do that. One of them would be if the origin of the ship or the magic that is moving the ship is from the far realm.
Okay.
So it's totally alien. The issue is the Tarasques aren't from there, and everything that's in the sort of story indicates that they travel the planes and collected. So you would essentially have to create a situation where they were from a completely different multiverse in order to make that happen, because people have been spell jamming between the different worlds and have been planes hopping from all the different places through all the different planes and all that kind of stuff. So there would be some level of immunity for most of it.
Right.
You know, you could make the argument that because this planet was sealed off from the rest of the multiverse for so long, that it was that it would have been very dangerous, like the different diseases. But you then also would have to explain why cure disease no longer works as a stuff. You know, so that's the other thing. So this is where this is where like good world building shines for those who are willing to ask difficult questions and answer, you know, without the answer being just cuz.
Yeah.
Right.
Here's a crazy one. What if it presented itself as all of like the colors of the rainbow and they all functioned somewhat independently, but there was like a hierarchy of these. And so like, for example, like the purple was like the least symptomatic and like the least, but if you had purple, you could catch blue, which was worse. And then like they're all spreading in like different kind of areas. So like red, like trumps everything else. And so red is spreading really, and just like have all these breakouts of these different kinds of colors. And then
Sounds real complicated.
oh, it totally does. It's totally out there.
So-
But,
So I would what I would say to that is that was the second version, not quite that, but that was sort of the second version that I was going to say,
Oh.
where it's like there's one version where everybody gets different color. The second version could be that people progress through the colors.
yeah, that could be a thing.
Ooh,
know.
I like that.
It's
So
probably
that
simpler.
it is, so you always start with red, and the thing is, like a prismatic wall. Let me just look this up real quick. So prismatic wall, it starts with fire. So it goes fire, acid, lightning, poison, cold, then petrified, and then sent to another dimension.
Right.
In this situation, it could absolutely be that, like, you know, it starts with red, and if you catch it while it's red, cure disease will work.
Okay.
And what that gives you is, because it's fire damage, it just gives you a fever. And then
Oh yeah, I like
goes
that.
to orange. When it goes to orange, then cure disease no longer works on it. You then have to do like a greater restoration or something like that,
So-
right?
What level is cure disease? That's what
think-
I'm trying to find out.
It's either 2 or 3.
Let's see.
It's not crazy.
I
But
don't
then
think
you-
cure disease. I think you're thinking of like lesser restoration then, because I don't
Oh,
think
it's-
cure disease is a spell.
Yeah, I'm not familiar, but we could look.
Oh,
Yeah.
it might be a 3.5 thing.
Yep.
There is.
Because lesser
Yeah,
restoration is you cure one disease or a condition, and it's second level.
Yeah, they probably just rolled it into lesser restoration then. But so if you've got so let's say you start with fire, and so you get your fever, then the next step would be acid. So at that point, it moves down into your gut, and now you're getting like an ulcer. You get these stomach pains, something like that, because it amplifies the acid in your stomach. And you need something else to cure that. Like maybe in that situation, it would be purify food and drink, or something like that. Like you have to purify the stomach acid somehow. Then the next one is lightning damage. That could absolutely be, it goes up to you, like it moves up to your brain and starts giving you migraines, increasing the electrical activity in your head. And in that situation, then you have to do something sort of mental based. The next one would be poison, and that would be, pretty straightforward. That is just like, you're laid out at this point, like just like you've got a crazy flu, and now you've got to like neutralize poison, you've got to like cure poison for that. Then you get to cold, absolutely. no problem there. Then you start turning to stone, and after a day of like rigor mortis, like you can no longer move, then like in the next day, you get transported to a random plane. And you're stoned, and you're essentially just a statue on a random plane now. And there's like I see now I want to make this disease because I feel like a great like beginning of a story arc where it's just like 1,000 years ago this plague broke out. There's no records of it. It was devastating, and there's all of these statues of essentially people sleeping all over the multiverse, and nobody knows what they are or where they came from. And then something happens, and some of them start waking up. You know, like
Does petrification slow the aging process?
it turns you to stone, so you no longer age at all.
But you're not dead.
Nope, you're just
Okay.
petrified.
It's like
You're also not a
like carbonite.
creature at that point, too.
You're what?
You're not a creature at that point. You're an object, right? Because you're a statue,
Guess so.
right?
I think
I'm
there's
asking a
somewhere-
question.
I think you're still considered a creature because stone to flesh doesn't work on objects, I don't think.
because you're not a corpse yet.
Yeah.
Apparently.
So I think that would be absolutely super fun. I
One-
think that would be delightful.
One question though, let's say you are around someone in the cold stage, you catch it at the cold stage, or do you start over at red?
No, you start over. Each
Oh,
person
okay,
starts over.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that you have, and essentially what it would be is, it would be once you are in the red stage, you have 1 week
Yeah.
before you're gone. It progresses a new color every day. So it would be, that would give you that ticking clock. There's
Mm.
stuff happens, you know, like, and something happens where like some poor adventurer in the abyss finds this, you know, petrified person and decides to unpetrify them to see like, oh, maybe this person, something happened to them. They know what's going on here. And it turns out not only do they not know what's going on, but you just got the red version because they're still
Classic.
carriers, you know. And then that's how it starts. And you could make a whole campaign of this plague spreading across the multiverse.
So here's a question: after they get unpetrified, what happens to them? Because they've gone through all the stages. What then happens?
I would say at that point you've got like a natural immunity to it,
Okay.
but you're still carrying it.
Oh fuck. Will that ever go
That
away?
sounds weird.
Nope, it happens all the time. If you get
No, I mean-
you can generate a natural immunity to it if you gain it, but it means that you still can asymptomatically carry it from all of the other strains of it, you know, and you can still get sick again if the strains change enough.
For how long though? Is that a permanent thing?
No, it depends. I mean, so if we're talking scientifically, that immunity will last anywhere from like 6 months to a year.
No, sorry. I was talking about being able to be a symptom carrier. I'm honestly just curious
No,
about like what we would do
That's
for
not
the
what I
stealth
meant.
plague.
That's not what I meant.
This is how world building works. You ask the difficult questions, and if you can answer them, great. You know, if not, you need to figure out a way around it.
Yeah,
you know?
I meant like because you wanted it to be like harder and harder to cure. If it was just curing petrification, that just goes back to greater restoration.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's why I was like, it's weird because you're not like progressing through spell levels unless you wanted it to be like a wish type thing. But I don't know.
So the thing is that if you look at like prismatic wall, the things that can successfully dispel these things, the spells don't necessarily progress, and there's different things that can be done. So like the red section, 25 points of cold damage gets rid of it. You don't even need a spell. If you've got something that deals cold damage, you can get rid of that later, you know. Then the next one just has to be strong wind, you know. The next one, force damage. The next one is the pass wall spell. The next one goes back down to fire damage. The next one is a daylight spell. So you don't have to, like, if
Okay.
you're following that sort of idea, it doesn't necessarily need to be like stronger and stronger and stronger spells. It can just be different things that make sense.
Gotcha. Okay. That's where I was confused, because I was like, if we're doing a hierarchy of difficulty to, but yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, I would love that. Maybe
That
that's
sounds like a lot of fun.
Right? Well, and especially if it's like the plague starts somewhere distant and you have like no way to know what this thing is initially until it's raging out of control.
This would be the worst time for a plague to set out, is everybody is coming to one area of our world for healing, and magic doesn't really work in other places. So everywhere else, this plague might just be taking over. We don't know.
Oh, sure. Well, and it also could be that, like, you know, this plague like lies dormant while magic is suppressed, and then somebody comes into Delver's Dream.
Oh.
And suddenly all of Delver is...
Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe the only reason this plague is resurfacing is because their natural magic immunity isn't strong enough to protect them from this.
I would just be sad if in our world a bunch of poor people died because we couldn't get them the proper medical care.
Yeah, that would be disgusting.
Yeah.
Listen. I don't mean to brag, but Reginald is setting up a triage while Durax is trying to shoot people in the face. So
yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
Look at your choices, look to life.
Right, you know, like, listen, doll, okay?
I need you to look at yourself.
Yeah. God, this is fun. Okay. Imagine if a brand new character came in having suffered with this plague previously. Yeah, that'd be pretty crazy.
Yeah, that would be very sad.
So,
I'm not sure I am prepared to deal with this particular plague currently while I am rebuilding the world.
Yeah. Oh man.
There's a lot of questions.
All of them.
Like for example, if you're red and you get, you know, cured, are you immune then? You get it again? Like,
yeah, I would say absolutely. You know, like, that's the point. Is there is, once you've suffered any of it, and once they figured out how to cure it, you know. And what I would do is I'd be like, you know, okay, the first one normally, you know, like lesser restoration would cure a disease, but this one, because it's based on fire, you have to find something else. Like, you have to do something.
Sure.
Like, you know, like cast, you know, armor of Agathis on them or something, like encase them in cold in order to counteract it.
So you said they would be immune after that, or no, and they could just catch it again? Oh, okay. Because we'd be like, wow, that would be terrible. That'd be like a Band-Aid for, you know, someone cutting off their arm. Like, I mean, he's like, go back in the community and get it again.
if you're dealing with something like that, the next thing as a DM that you have to think about is you want obstacles, but you do not want people to feel hopeless.
Yeah.
You know, you can get them to the verge of hopeless as long as there's always a way out. There's always a way out or through or up or over. You know, but if it was like, okay, you got cured, but then because you are around the other people, you're just going to catch it again, and you need to be cured every single day. At that point,
that sounds
then it's
like,
just how many. It becomes an issue of how many spell slots do you have available in the city, and then at that point, then it's who gets those spell slots.
Yeah.
And then who just has to die.
We were talking about that with Mimir's touchstone, like now that like the like Gorf has been turned to a gold statue, like does he have to keep doing the save? Does he keep having to be saved from being a statue every time he touches Mimir or stuff like that? Is that still going to be an obstacle continuing?
We also
yes.
kind of
Okay.
Sorry.
Because that's a whole different thing.
So
There's
Gorf
no
can
immunity
become
to this.
statue again.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. And I guess the question is.
So the point of that touchstone is it's the Midas touch. It's the curse of being insanely wealthy because everything that you touch.
The other question is, is there any kind of cooldown?
And just every creature.
Okay, so for example, like, no. Okay.
No, the whole point. So this whole
that's fair.
point
That's
is
fair.
that the downside of this thing is that you now have to be so aware of yourself and so aware of your surroundings that you never accidentally touch one of your companions.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And so it's just, but it's also fabulous opportunities for roleplay.
Totally. We
You
were just curious because we definitely abused it as a mechanic
a little
for
bit,
attacking people.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. You can turn all of your enemies into these statues if you can touch them.
Right. I think for Mimir, it's a bit annoying because, like, he kind of hunts monsters. So,
yeah, it'd be annoying.
Right. If you wanted the resources from that monster, you can't touch it until it's dead. So, like.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Because when it's dead, then it's not a creature anymore. It's a corpse.
I mean, technically, rules is.
I mean, you could also touch it so that it's no longer fighting you. Transport it back to Delver Stream, and then like tie it down.
And then cast. Because you have the spell to reverse it.
Good idea, Kyle. I'll do that.
While it's still. Well, this is the thing. Like, I want people to turn these. I expect my characters at my table to be able to turn a detriment into a plus. Like everything there.
I mean, I want to suffer with it a little bit before we get there, but yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, like I know you probably didn't see the VOD or the video, but Gorf, while drunk, and he realized after this was really fucked up. But Gorf, while drunk, laughing, dragged a kicking and screaming thug over to Mimir to get him to touch it, so he turned to gold.
and afterwards, he was like, "Wow, that's pretty fun. That's pretty effed up."
Like Gover Summer is like, "Oh fuck, actually."
Yeah, no, there's
the drunk Gorf was hilarious.
I would consider that like a pretty cool and unusual form of punishment.
We turned him back.
No, that's fine, but you grab somebody kicking and screaming who is trying to leave the situation. And then...
Well, they also tried to kill us, so...
Sure. But that brings up, and this is one of the things that I'm really excited about this season, is bringing up these ethical questions about... So he tried to kill you, and now he's escaping. He's actively trying to leave the situation. Is it still okay to, grab him? Like, I would say it's absolutely okay to grab him, put him in shackles, and take him to the constable.
Oh, totally.
But to, like, essentially drag him to his death, potentially, it's pretty messed up. Yeah, it's pretty messed up.
Drunk Gorf is kind of scary.
Yeah.
We know that now. All right, I'm gonna hop off though, guys. But
well, have a glorious evening.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, Mike. Thanks for joining us. And we're gonna switch. That's not the right.
Yeah. I just got a little note from Twitch saying, "Hey, we're gonna shift this to 55% of the ad revenue if you do 3 minutes of ads per hour." And I'm like, when that whole 3 minutes per hour thing first came out, we tried it. We did it. It was so annoying.
It was so painful.
So fucking annoying for everyone. And knowing that we had to stop the stream for straight up 3 minutes because we're trying to tell a story. Yeah. And also, I think the most we have ever gotten from ad revenue for a stream is something like 3 cents. No, that's not true. There was one stream that we had where we got 13 cents from it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, so I'm totally going to annoy everyone in our fabulous audience for an extra, what, like 3 or 4 cents? Baby.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you.
And I'm like, I'm here for it if you have, like, if you are a partner and you have 20,000 followers, you know, absolutely.
Yeah, and
Like,
it's like a good
make
time
your
to take a
point.
quick bathroom break. You know, like you see an ad's playing, you put down your game because you're most likely playing a video game. You pause it, no one misses
Yeah,
anything.
it's
but-
totally different for an actual play.
No, totally.
Oh my god. Oh my god. It's so insane. I just can't. I just can't.
Bitch.
Yeah. So I'm excited about this new season. But this is one of the things that I love is just like you take a random concept and you turn it into something super fabulous and interesting. Not because you're sitting there alone doing that, but because, you know, it is because you are working through it. That like world building is not about having a great idea and just making that happen. Like that's a campaign, that's a good DM. Grab an idea, make it happen for a session or two. Absolutely, run with it.
Totally.
World building is about actually creating the backbone for a whole planet, you know, or a whole universe, if that's what it is. Answering the questions about why stuff works this way, how it works with other things. And with 5e, a lot of those questions are already answered because you have the answers about how does this multiverse work? How does planar travel work? How does, you know, how do these mechanics work? Did the title of our stream just change?
Oh, this is from last week's, and I didn't change it initially. So yes,
left,
technically.
and so now we're going to talk about Unearthed Arcana.
Yeah, now we're going
to talk about Unearthed Arcana when Mike's here. We just can't do it.
Yeah, he hates it. He hates Unearthed Arcana.
Unacceptable. So now we're going to talk about.
We're going to do Mike's.
Is that the new code for Idle Champions, or is that the old code?
No, that's a new one. I did adjust that at least.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Just to make sure, hey everybody, use that code to get an Electrum chest in fabulous Idle Champions. It'll be great. Mike hates.
No, so Streamlabs does not like to adjust text. So I typed in Mike's not here now, and it's taking 15 years for it to compile.
Yeah,
and these are all my fat typos that you're seeing right now.
I love it. Well, in the 10 minutes we've got left, why don't we talk about
It's gonna leave it.
What season 3 is gonna hold? So, season 3 is a couple of things you can expect. First off, you can expect fantastic new emotes over the course of the next month. We're going to have all kinds of fun ones for you. Hey, all of our subscribers, let's get some Wheels of Chaos into the chat. Let's show off. Let's show off the new emotes. That's right. It's so much fun. I can't wait for the last one. We got 3 new emotes.
Animated
emotes. And the last one is super fun. I'm just gonna be using it everywhere.
Yeah, the last one.
Okay.
So good.
So there's definitely gonna be that. Next, we are going to be tackling some crazy issues in season 3. In season 3, the characters are now the most powerful people on the planet. And their actions are going to dictate the future of the multiverse. Not just the actions of like what they do in combat, but every day, how they act. And the whole point of this 3-season arc has been to show, in the beginning, you're growing, you have no real power. everybody else has control of you. They dictate all your choices. Sort of like when you're a kid, when you're a teenager, when you're just starting in like a new company, that feeling like you have no control. You have to do what the people who are in power around you say. Then the second season was growing in power and respect, defining who you are and utilizing that to get the things that you want in those situations. Crawling up the ladder, making sure that you have power in those situations. And season 3 is going to be, you got the power. What are you going to do? What do you do with that power now? Knowing that every action is going to be monitored. And it's very similar to our society now, where it's everything you do, it's on social media, it is being judged, it is affecting the people around you in a much more powerful way than it ever was before.
Yeah.
You know, you could, when I was growing up, mind you, imagine a time where there was no such thing as a cell phone. You only had landlines, and only one person could be speaking on that landline at a time. That you had to like actually schedule calls with people. You had to remember phone numbers. Like I had a literal Rolodex, which was a thing where you would put people's business cards, you punch a hole and you put people's business cards in there, and you would literally roll it around, and it was in alphabetical order, and you'd pull out the cards and you would call someone. It is absolutely, it was a real thing. It happened. Now, if you went to like a party or things like that, you might meet a couple of people and interact with them. And if you had a bad interaction with them, that's maybe like at a big party, it's maybe a couple dozen people, you know, that would have interacted with you that would then might talk to a couple dozen more people. And in a big city, it's essentially meaningless. Like you could go 3 blocks down and no one had ever heard of anybody at that party. You know, like that's how the world operated. And now, you know, you can have a real effect, for good or bad, on thousands of people in a day. And what does that mean? You know, social media has given us a little bit of a glimpse into what it's like if like you own a giant corporation and the decisions that you make are going to affect millions of people. Social media is now that sort of thing, and now our characters have this power. Literally, their actions are going to be transmitted out. And so when one of our characters pulls out a gun and like just, you know, shoves it in someone's face, that's out in the multiverse now. That is now
that's a thing.
You know, there is when someone who you know is pretentious and arrogant locks a bunch of sick people out of the space because they want access to it. That's now out in the multiverse. What you do with that person, how do you do with that? So I'm really excited to see what this looks like because I will be keeping track. And like this past week on Wednesday, we had our sort of little initial run of what this looks like. And from now on, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be keeping essentially little notes on like the things that the characters have done. And the final episode of the season is going to be what effect this has on the multiverse. I'm going to force you to actually look at your actions at the end of this season and be like, what does this look like, you know?
Right.
So I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited to just see a season where the world has been defined, not completely, but the vast majority. You know, this continent, we know what this looks like,
Yeah.
and you can go wherever you want, and sort of help people or hinder people or whatever that looks like. The other thing is that, and I have been in a couple of bad situations over the past couple of weeks, so I've not been able to get to this yet, but I am going to be casting either 4 or 5 people that are going to all have planar touchstones and are going to be essentially the opposing party to this war. So let me know if you're interested in playing a little bit of the villain.
Yikes.
I think that's going to be delightful. So yeah,
Well,
because not everyone believes in peace and love and gentle delight. Some people want power. Some people want to take things over. Some people see the opportunity here, you know, and they want to just wreck. Some people just want to wreck the world. Some people are just the Joker, you know. That's the thing. It exists. We see it all the time in the world. Some people just want to burn it all down, you know. So I'm very interested to see how that will play out.
Interesting.
In our new world. That's going to be delightful. And will Delver's dream retain its protections? Will the gods try to intervene? What's going to happen to our fabulous hero?
I feel like the gods, I mean, maybe I'm taking some liberties, but they do know that what happens on this planet affects the multiverse. It would be really hard for me to believe that they're like, I don't really care about the multiverse. We're not going to try to influence it all that much. That seems like not a thing that's going to happen. That the gods are going to be super hands off. That's just me, though.
Well, there are some secrets that you have not yet figured out about this planet in general, or what's really going on. Have you? Have you?
That is true.
It's gonna get scandalous, I tell you.
Oh,
Scandalous.
I would expect nothing less.
Yeah, I'm really curious, actually, about some of the people. Like, I really want to know what's gonna happen with Ingrath. You know, I want to know what's gonna happen. And this one of the things that I love is that I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Like, I know who they are, and I'm very interested to see what happens in the world that will push them in one direction or another, you know? So I'm very excited. I'm very excited about all of it.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you to everybody for being here today, for hanging out with us while we chatted about what gives us inspiration and the reason we love this game. And we're going to go do a little dice giveaway now. So, hey, everybody.
I thought you were going to say raid. I was going to be like,
Oh, no, I caught myself. Because I do that every week. So, yeah, hit ! raffle if you'd like to win some fabulous Phoenix dice. And while we are doing that, let's thank Hero Forge for being such a fabulous sponsor. Please head over to heroforge.com to create your own custom mini. Take it out of your head and put it there into the world. Super easy. You can do it in like 10 minutes. Or if you want to get really in depth with your color choices and all that kind of stuff, it can take like an hour. Like, I have absolutely spent hours creating characters. It is delightful. But if you need one on the fly, you can do it in 5 minutes if you need to. So there is, head over there, do that. Thank you, Phoenix Dice. Thank you, D&D Beyond. Thank you, Idle Champions of Forgotten Realms. Thank you, Realm Warp. Thank you, Souls Rolls. Thank you, Gentle Firefly. Thank you, all of the people who have helped make us a fabulous success. And thank you, everybody in chat, for being here and being friggin' delightful. It is just, it's always lovely to get to come and hang out with a bunch of awesome people several times a week. So, who's gonna win them dice?
All right, let's take a look. All right, entries are now closed. And the winner is... Cotton Candy Unicorn!
Cotton Candy! This is like, I want to say this is like your fifth one, something like that. Cotton Candy.
I mean, that's what happens when you're a faithful
when you're
Player Allies watcher.
We appreciate you. You get dice. I love it. Send me a little note. Send me a fabulous little note in the Discord, and we will get you hooked up with some delightful Phoenix dice, is what we will do. And it looks like we don't have anybody live right now from our streams.
I see Carney Sideshow. They just popped up on my...
Oh, did they?
Side.
Did they?
Yep.
So let me refresh and get that Carney Sideshow action happening. Super excited about that. Carney Sideshow is a member of the Rolling Together stream team and is delightful. So absolutely, we're going to go raid them and say hello. Oh, hello. Huh. Why are they not popping up on mine for some reason?
I think. Hold on, give me 1 sec. I think I can start it.
There it is.
Oh, okay.
I found them. Okay, so
Nice.
we're going to start now. Stick around for the raid because you get all kinds of channel points which you can use to help or hinder our fabulous, fabulous characters when we get back to our actual play. Here we go. I want to thank you, Lando, for being delightful, and
Thank
thank
you.
you, Mike, for being here. That's glorious, and we will see you all tomorrow for Delver Stream.
Bye! It's gonna be crazy.